All right. Let's let people trickle in. Remember people to be muted if you're not talking to eliminate feedback, particularly if we get, more than a dozen people in the call, noise adds up pretty quickly. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to the first WAS meeting of 2021. Happy New Year, and I hope everybody had a good holiday season. Couple of ground rules for the Zoom meeting, Webex meeting, sorry. If y'all could mute yourself while you're not talking, just so we can hear everybody who does need to talk. And we'll run things down with the reports from our new board and the subgroups before we do a brief in the news in the sky, and then our short presentation. So, thank you very much again. I am Diane Hall, the president for this year. It was an interesting year last year. The board is hoping that we can transition everybody to safe public outreach and safe in-person meetings, but there are a lot of factors to be worked out before now and then. So, time being, bear with us as we do what we need to do virtually. We will be sending out a mailer within the next month with a 2020 year in review from last year's board and some other things, so keep an eye out for that. Calendars are in the mail. The first batch was mailed this morning. So if you ordered a calendar, it is in transit. There were about 8 people that ordered after we had placed our previous order of calendars from the calendar company. So we are awaiting those to arrive from Canada, and then we'll turn them around as quickly as possible to get them in your hands. So they're a beautiful set of calendars. We are really happy with the diversity of photographs, both the sheer number of people who contributed photographs and the artwork itself. So it's we're very happy to get that out there. The WASP, if you have seen it, is kicking off our 60th anniversary as a club. So unfortunately last year, our 50th anniversary celebrations of Stargate were a bit short-circuited in that we really weren't able to access Stargate for 9 months out of the year. We are hoping to have a much more festive, even if virtually festive, Diamond anniversary for this society. So look forward to more anniversary-themed goodies coming your way over the course of the year. And with that, I'd like to pass the baton yet again to First Vice President Dale Bertin. You're muted, Dale.
Dale, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. At our next meeting, Thursday, January 21, we have what I feel is an extra special speaker coming electronically, of course. His name is Dr. Roger Wiens. He is the lead scientist at NASA for all instruments on top of the mast of the Curiosity rover and the Perseverance rover. that's landing on Mars next month. His topic will be exploring Mars with NASA's Curiosity and Perseverance rovers. He had to really work to get us into his schedule this month because Perseverance lands next month and his workload, he says, is going to go way up. So I hope we get a good turnout for him. Really sounds like a good presentation. Then the next meeting after that will be Monday, February the 1st. Dr. Castoldi will be our speaker. She is a professor of astronomy at Oakland University. Her topic will be the Kuiper Belt objects. I might add that I've managed to get a good number of outside speakers that are academically involved with astronomy. They give full-length presentations. I could sure use some short presentations, 10 or 15-minute kind of things. So if you have something like that in mind, I would especially encourage you to let me know. Thank you much. Back to you, Diane.
All right. Thank you, Dale. And Second Vice President / Observatory Chair, Riyadh Mahdi.
Thank you, Diane, and hello, everyone. I visited the observatory today and the dab shed. Both buildings are in good shape. The equipment seems to be okay also. I didn't see any damage. Later on, maybe this year, possibly in the next couple of months or so, as soon as it starts to, the weather starts to get better, I'll be out there doing a little bit more work to make sure we don't get some wasps and mice and whatever inside the buildings, so we'll block them. Other than that, everything seems to be in good condition, and hopefully maybe if we get back together out at Stargate Observatory later on this summer or maybe in the fall, I think everything will be running and we'll be able to observe together. That's all I have at this time. Thank you. It starts to
get
better.
And
they're doing a little bit more
brand
work.
new Secretary Mark Kedzier.
Hello, everyone. Happy 2021. The minutes of the December meeting by our outgoing Secretary Glenn Wilkins are in the WASP, and I look forward to taking minutes the best I can. Hopefully I take minutes and not hours to do the minutes, okay? That's all I have.
Thank you, Mark. Incoming Treasurer Adrian Bradley.
Good evening, y'all. The latest Treasurer's report is also in the WASP. Some quick highlights. We have 152 members as of end of December. And we have roughly between 22,000 in the kitty. And if any questions on details, you can see them in the WASP. I will be transitioning with our outgoing treasurer, Mark, and getting other details. We have received all of the PayPal member updates and calendar purchases. So those continue to be current. And that's what all I've got.
Thank you, Adrian. And back to Bob Tremblay at the Outreach Desk.
Hi there, everyone. Happy 2021. I have, tonight at the board meeting, started a new spreadsheet on Google Docs here to record outreach events, and recorded my own. I did my son lecture for my wife's classroom this morning. So yeah, if you do any outreach events, please let me know about that. There's a link in the WASP that will send a notification to me. I also have, I'm putting in chat right here, I'll put this in the next WASP. I've got a form here. If you have a presentation that you do, I would like to know about it. I'd like to send a list of presentations that our guys can do out to teachers and stuff. So if you have a presentation that you can present online, you can fill out that form and let me know about it, and I can get that list out to teachers all over the place. Other than that, it's looking like we're going to be doing stuff online, at least for the foreseeable future, probably into summer. So we probably need to be focusing on that. And one of the things, we've got a lot of astronomical events, and we had to figure out how we're going to do some of these online. So if you have ideas for like Astronomy Day coming up, all these different astronomy events coming up in the next few months, we got to figure out a way to do it online. And I'm one of my pushes is I really want teachers to know about us this year. I want us to be a household name or a classroom name this year. So anyway, that's it for outreach.
Thank you, Bob. And again, if you have anything to report, email Bob at outreach@warrenastro.org. Hyperlink included in the WASP to make it easy. And finally, Dale Teamy back at publications.
Well, Happy New Year to everybody. Happily, for the first of the year, the WASP is up, and we are putting finishing touches on the 2021 mailer, which hopefully will get out before the end of the month. Back to you, Diane.
Thank you very much. I do not see Solar Marty, the chair of our solar subgroup here. I'm posting the link to the Solar Dynamic Observatory. I do not see a lot going on with the sun. And at least for the last couple of days in Michigan, what's the sun? So
he's going to be on YouTube, by the way. So
that's what I figured. Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Ken.
Sure.
Hands-on, Riyadh, anything to add other than currently suspended?
Yeah, unfortunately, not much else we can add to that this time. But like I said, hopefully sometime middle to third quarter of this year, we'll be back, and I'll always have a list of objects to observe, and we'll be back at it again.
Can't wait. Dale Teamy, history.
Been busy reading. That's all I can say, but nothing else is happening right now.
I actually have a history project to get with you on. I wanted to talk to you about it after the holidays, so look forward to that, because we've got some digging to do that I think may prove interesting.
Good.
All right. Astrophotography group. Do we have Bill or Bob on the line? If not, any of you who ordered the WASP calendar can see the fabulous results of our wonderful stable of astro imagers and astrophotographers. If you are interested in honing your skills, the virtual open houses are a great place to do that, because the conversation often defaults into the finer points of imaging. You can contact Bill Beers. He's got a column in the WASP. It's that update from the Sirius Observatory. And we'll be happy to talk to you about developing your astro imaging skills.
I'd like to join that group if possible. So I'll send Bill Beers an email. Be a part of that group. My imaging is more along the lines of the nightscape photography, but I dial up astrophotography as well. Got stars over the Mackinac Bridge this past trip I took this weekend. And after the meeting, I'd be happy to show you the image I got, a couple of the images. I didn't think it would be possible, but this is a one-take, non-composite image of stars, Orion in particular, over the Mackinac Bridge. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely reach out to Bill. I'm sure he'd appreciate some company, because when he's here, he usually puts up his email address and a little index card. I would say refer to the WASP and give him a shout.
Could I say something? One thing about the calendar, really quick.
Absolutely.
We do still have 2 copies available, and if more than 2 people want them, we
I
might
want
be
one.
able to find 2 more. So,
I want one.
okay, that's one. So if you would like a calendar, just let me know, and I'll add Ken to the spreadsheet.
All right. Very good. Glack. Bob, Adrian, you can draw straws. Or just...
I'll go first, Bob.
Adrian wins.
Yeah,
I
I'll
knew that
go.
was
We're
gonna
gonna
happen.
meet. Yeah, we're still gonna meet. We're gonna have elections somehow. And it's projected that most of the board that's in place is likely going to stay in place for 2021. And we will ruminate for the next couple of months over doing another virtual astronomy at the beach or some sort of hybrid with this new kind of puts a damper on the whole pushing forward for a hybrid astronomy at the beach, because if there's still new super spreader events that come out and stuff like that. So we're gonna talk about it, take it here, play it by ear, see what's going on with the state as well. We have to follow the state since we're using Island Lake Recreation Park. So some of our decisions will be made for us, and we'll work with that. At the very least, I will be pushing for hybrid, because just like Dale, you're able to get speakers remotely. They don't have to travel. We don't see why that wouldn't be something to do with GLAC. Have some stations where we can project speakers. Even if we did a hybrid thing, we would still have speakers that could talk and just project their talk, underneath a tent or something like that. That's an idea that I'm gonna pursue for GLAC. So even in safer years where there's telescopes outside, we could have presenters still presenting online, depending on what kind of internet we can get out there. So that's all I got. And Bob, if you've anything else that you've got, go for it. Yeah,
No, I actually missed the last meeting, so I feel terrible about that. I was kind of in a bad way after my parent
that's all
passed,
right.
but
No,
yeah,
you were
issues. But yeah, when is the meeting? It's like in a couple days, isn't it?
It's
So,
the 14th.
all right. So if
Yes,
anybody, yeah, that's also in the WASP. If anybody else wants to join into that meeting, we'd like to have people listening in.
Yeah, keep us honest, just like you all did this year. We appreciated the input. And what was I going to say? Yeah, depending on your workload, Bob, and how much web work we're going to do, we'll keep in mind the fact that you've been busy at the Vatican.
Well,
You guys have
I would
a lot
when
of work
it
for us.
comes to GLAC's website this year, I would like not to be the sole person doing it. I would like to have some help. So we might be doing a merging of working on the WASP website and working on the GLAC website.
Yeah, we'll figure something out for you, because I think Brian Adam got hit with some fatigue as well. So we'll
If
see.
anybody wants to learn WordPress, I'd be more than happy to show you the back end.
Yep.
Email
All right.
Bob at outreach@warrenastro.org.
All right.
Thank you very much. I'll see what I can do to join y'all, but except on the programming thing, because I'm not any good at that. Club Merchandise and Astronomical League. Jonathan Cade. Where are we at with that?
I think right now I need to make sure the Astronomical League knows that I'm still alive. That's my major item for the month. You are more than welcome to renew your Astronomical League membership as part of your membership renewal. So keep an eye on your mailbox.
Jonathan, can you explain to everybody how the Webex Join Live thing works? Because we get a slew of emails from people who should already be on our list every time. And I just got one from Dale Hollenbaugh right now while I was talking. So can you just give everybody the rundown of how the Join Live function works in the back end and why you don't need to send us like 3 or 4 emails?
Well, it sounds like for some reason people got links that didn't work. So I'm not sure why that's the case, but the way, I mean, Join Live is just an email that comes to me and Diane, so it doesn't magically do anything. I still have to invite you. I've been trying to include the links directly in our meeting invitations, and hopefully that is working all right when I do, but I don't always put together the email invitations, so hopefully I'll be able to do a little bit more of that now. So yeah.
But it
And
should be the.
I don't know why
What's-
some of the I don't know why some people have reported, like John Blum and David Levy both had links that didn't work for some reason, and I'm not sure why. So
Yeah, because like
This is the link that worked for all the previous meetings in the last several months. I saved it so I could just use it again, and it worked repeatedly, but this time it doesn't work anymore.
yeah, I did not do anything, so maybe they changed the link with the new year is my suspicion, but I'm not entirely sure. So I will try to make sure that the links get included directly in the MailChimp emails going forward, though.
yeah, you're right, John Blum. They should have. We were able to just use the same one, and if they change that up at the first of the year on their back end, well, we'll deal with it. Just okay. Thank you very much. And it is 7:50. I'm going to hijack everybody's browser.
Solar?
What's that?
Solar?
We did solar. There's nothing going on. I
Oh,
typed the SDO link in there. We have a coronal hole.
There's absolutely nothing going on
Yeah.
but that corona hole. That's it.
You can look at the sun in every single wavelength that the SDO offers, and I have, and there is nothing to
Zero.
talk about.
Nothing on there. There's one little on the right side of the sun of the rotating wave. There's a little bit of a flare, but that's it. Nothing else.
I just posted a video link there for the corona for the last 48 hours.
All right. Exercising my prerogative to do in the news for the beginning of the year. Can y'all see it? Thank you for the thumbs up there, Bob. Okay. In brief, Hayabusa 2 returned successfully to Earth last month, and it's got stuff in it. Now, the first Hayabusa mission only got a tiny amount of material from its target asteroid. Hayabusa 2 collected all kinds of stuff, ranging from fine grains to fairly chunky particles from asteroid Ryugu. And there was also a surprise of sorts in the canister. This strange, shiny object, looks like a bit of crumpled aluminum foil, was in sample container C. You can see it's about 5 millimeters long. The answer to what it is, no, it's not alien tech. It's almost certainly a piece of the spacecraft's own sampling horn that got scraped off during the collection project that yielded all these cool charcoal colored fragments. So if you are interested in keeping up with the Hayabusa 2 team, they have a Twitter account where they are giving regular updates as they analyze this treasure trove of samples. Also coming out of Japan, wooden satellites. The BBC headline this week blared, Japan developing wooden satellites to cut space junk. It is true that Sumitomo Forestry and Kyoto University have partnered to develop what they hope will be the world's first satellite made out of wood by 2023. Wood does have really incredible tensile capabilities, so you can construct something out of the right kind of wood, not balsa wood, not particle board, that would have the strength of, say, aluminum. But that's not going to solve the issue of space junk. So satellite debris, There's no air, there's no water, it doesn't biodegrade. Space is not a landfill. And a chunk of wood hurtling along at 22,300 miles an hour will bust you up just as badly as a chunk of aluminum. It doesn't matter at that point. So, also, the simple act of deploying a satellite or a cluster of satellites creates a huge percentage of the space junk. You have booster stages. You have fairing cases on the rocket. You have all kinds of little bits of debris from whatever sort of mechanism unleashed those satellites. Wooden satellites will do absolutely nada to clean up space. What they will do, the advantage that they do have over a metal satellite is they burn clean on re-entry. They do not produce a rain of micrometallic fragments. So yeah, they're environmentally cleaner, but that's only once they already find a way to deorbit and burn up. So wooden satellites are coming. Wooden satellites actually make a fair amount of sense, but space is still really, really junky right now. Speaking of space junk, no, I'm not going to complain about Starlink. SpaceX, though, they are at it again. CEO Elon Musk said recently via Twitter, we are going to try to catch the super heavy booster with the launch tower arm using the grid fins to take the load. If you've seen any launches on film or in person, your first thought is probably, oh, what? It's unclear whether this is even possible, but theoretically, hypothetically, the Super Heavy has 28 Raptor engines. It goes up, it could come down using a subset of those Raptor engines until it's almost at a hover, at which point arms from the launch tower could go reach out and grab the booster and bring it home safely for reuse. Sounds weird, but landing regular-sized booster rockets on a barge for reuse was pretty weird until SpaceX actually mastered it, so we'll see. Not everything on Elon Musk's Twitter feed is worth remembering for the rest of your life, but we will see if SpaceX can pull this off. Frankly, I'd like to go down there just to see one of these puppies take off. Now, in cosmology, back in 2019, a research team measuring the movements of galaxies calculated that the universe might actually be hundreds of millions of years younger than thought. Their results were way off from the data collected by the European Space Agency's Planck satellite, which was our key tool for measuring remnants of the Big Bang during its 4-year span from 2009 to 2013. So this posed some questions. Well, fortunately with science, we replicate results. A new estimate just published in the Journal of Cosmology and Astroparticle Physics used data collected by the NSF's Atacama Cosmology Telescope. And it matches the Planck data, coming up with an age for the universe of 13.77 billion years old, give or take 40 million years. So, I'm sure there's going to be more looking into it as instruments get more refined, but right now, the discrepancy appears to be resolved. And finally, Avi Loeb, a Harvard University professor, has a book. In the book, Professor Loeb says there's only one conceivable explanation for the origins of the first known interstellar object to buzz our solar system. That is object 1I for interstellar 2017 U1 Oumuamua. Loeb says it's a piece of advanced technology created by a distant alien civilization. We get asked about stuff like this. All I have to say is the man is selling a book instead of writing a peer-reviewed paper. No, it wasn't, and we ain't talking about that anymore. Yeah, Bob Tremblay gives it 2 thumbs down. Yeah, no, sorry, moving on. in the sky. If you can see the sky, it's been awfully cloudy around where I am of late. Quadrantid meteor shower came and went. The peak of it was 2 nights ago, the night of the 2nd, going into the morning of the 3rd, drowned out by a full moon. I'd like to mention the quadrantids, not because I ever get to see them, but because their radiant point is a defunct constellation. You can see here Quadrans Muralis, a piece of astronomical equipment located above the head of Boötes, who's here with his hunting dogs. And so yeah, Quadrans Muralis did not make it into the official list of 88 constellations as recognized by the IAU. But if you do see a January meteor coming from just above the head of Boötes, the constellation best known for its bright star Arcturus, you've seen a meteor shower name for a constellation that doesn't exist. Count yourself lucky. And we are not done with the Great Conjunction yet. During the first week of this year, Jupiter and Saturn start out 1.3 degrees apart. By January 7th, they will be 2 degrees apart. But at that point, it gets interesting when magnitude 0.9, negative 0.9, so pretty bright, Mercury will join the scene about 4 degrees below Saturn, which is shining at positive 0.6. Jupiter will be shining at negative 2. So in order of brightness, Jupiter, then Mercury, then Saturn. Mercury will reach within 1.9 degrees due south of Saturn on January 9th, and the next evening will form an equilateral triangle. And then by January 11th, will be next to Jupiter. So if you have a clear shot at your southern horizon on the 9th, the 10th, or the 11th, about half an hour after sunset, you will get to see a triple planetary conjunction involving the elusive planet Mercury. I think that is super cool, and I've got my fingers crossed that I'll get to see it at least once. 6 p.m. local time is your ballpark. Meanwhile, Venus is putting on a good showing as the morning star. You can see it hanging out on January 9th, right next to Messier Nebulae M8 and M20. So if you've got a camera, that could make for an awfully interesting picture. Yeah, that's what Venus is up to. Right between M20 and M8, so that should be cool. Of course, the main factor is going to be, is your sky clear? So that concludes In the News in the Sky. Any questions? All right, it is 8 o'clock on the nose. We have time for a couple of observing reports before we hand things over to our presentation chair for the short presentation. Any observing reports?
I'd be
All
happy
right.
to do a quick, I'll do a quick rundown on some things that I saw on my trip to the UP.
Cool.
Let me share, I'll share Lightroom because that's where the pictures are. All right, so I'll do one picture, and I think this was actually there's the sunset, and hooray for that. This is cool, but this guy is cool. I have to process that. Mackinac Bridge, we all love the Mackinac Bridge. You shoot it from the police station, it looks like this. Now for the fun part, getting stars over the Mackinac Bridge. Here you go. Now,
Cool.
because I'm using a wide angle lens, you've got some leaning going on here. I do believe this is an unprocessed picture of it. So you're seeing yeah, I haven't even processed this picture. This was straight from camera for those that are interested. It was a 10-second exposure using ISO 3200 at f2.8. Shooting stars, I shoot f2.8 or less. It pulls the starlight in. The moon is over here. starting to rise behind trees when I took this shot. If you shoot deeper into, let's see, this is a process. So I did some, so you see the colors here and everything. That's when you start editing some things, and you can see bridge. And then for those of you who love the moon, that was it rising. And more artsy, which I don't seem to see. Yeah, this is my shot composite of the moon, some of the clouds it was rising over. So that was it was a fun trip. I stuck the phone right out and got this tower while I was driving away. There wasn't anyone behind me. And night shots of Tequamanon, if you want to do night photography and there's nothing but cloud, you can still, there's just enough light to still pick up something if you expose long enough. This was 81 seconds, and that's how long it took to get this scene, which is it's a bit surreal because it's more like a painting when it's that dark and the camera has to pull in light. So that basically concludes the stars that you saw in the stars that you saw in the pictures here. This is how dark it was there, and I don't think, I had a brief glimpse of the Pleiades while they briefly broke out, and a lot of people were trying to do light painting while I was there, so it was still busy over the river. That's it. That's all I got for stars at Tequamanon, and then it completely filled up. So I was dejected, but I did not kick my rig over the falls in frustration because I figured I'll just try again another day. Because I know it gets it gets dark here, probably darker than the headlands. If this is any indication, when it gets clear, you can still get stars in your shots. And this is, for those that like raw, unedited photos, this is a raw, unedited photo. That's the icy Lake Michigan, I believe, on this side, and it's Lake Huron on the other side of the Mackinac Bridge. So that concludes my observing report. Anytime I've been out and taken images, I've often talked a little bit about what I'm shooting at, what's in the night sky. There are a lot of people that are very interested in trying to see the night sky because there's not much else for them to do. And maybe the only thing that's cleared is to go out and see the night sky. So we had a brief moment to be able to see it, and I took advantage. I pulled over and started taking shots.
There were, here we are where we are right now. Nobody even mentions the fact of anybody going to see Jupiter and Saturn, by the way. I walked out my back door and there it was right there and put my telescope on it on the 20th. And I didn't get to see it on the 21st because it was clouded out, but got to see it then. And then the other night I went out with a pair of binoculars and it's still well within a pair of binoculars. And I got a chance to show it to my wife and such, and it was pretty nice. And I even swung the telescope on the 20th over to Mars and couldn't get much of it. Obviously, my scope is too small. But I'm sure many of you did get to see it. Is there anybody got to see it for a length of time or was out of town? I'd like to know that.
Looks like Riyadh raised his hand.
Yeah.
And Laura, too.
Yeah,
Pretty damn impressive.
I didn't see it when it was the closest, but I saw it about 3 or 4 days ago and it cleared up.
Yep.
And it was nice to see that Saturn and Jupiter had switched positions.
And David obviously had it because he was down in Arizona. So I'm sure you got to see it a few days, didn't you, David?
You.
Levy?
Yes, David. How did things look for you down there in Arizona?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
You saw the Jupiter Saturn almost every day, didn't you?
Yeah, I've watched it for a number each night and take a look at it, although they're getting pretty far away now. But I just wanted to thank Adrian for letting me into this meeting. Been trying to get into it for almost an hour. But anyway, I'm here, and I just want to say hi to everybody and to say that the picture that greeted me, one of Adrian's shots, is probably the best picture I've ever seen in my life by anybody. Adrian, you
Don't hold
are
back.
a master with that camera.
It's taken.
Congratulations.
Which one was it, David? Was it the stars over Mackinac Bridge?
The stars over the bridge. And
Yeah.
but you could probably show me a picture of a paperclip and I'd say the same thing.
Well, it's been long. I wish I could have shown all of you Tequamanen, because I know the day that I get the stars over Tequamanen, it will be nice. We will all love that one. That was a surprise that I could look up at with all that light and still see Orion pretty clearly. And I said, if I can see it, my camera sensor ought to be able to see it pretty good. So I just stopped and got it. Any chance you get clear skies in this state, no matter where you travel to get it, you got to go. I think this is the third trip I traveled to find clear skies as opposed to wait at home. And I've been greeted with something to take a picture of each time. So it's been a fun, worthwhile journey.
Pictures make me want to move to Michigan. I think they're just so magnificent. At some point, Diane, I'd like to just say hi to everybody for a minute or two.
This would be a perfect time because
Go for it.
we're about to hand things over to Dale for the speakers. So, yep, this is the time. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I really did enjoy the opening of that meeting with Adrian's pictures. They're just a pleasure to look at. And I want to wish all of you a very happy new year, and may it be a damn sight better than the last one for all of us. We really deserve it. And I hope there's clear sky. Hope we get a few meteors. I know that a friend of mine got some major fireballs from the quadrantids this year.
Oh, that's cool.
I got a couple of faint ones and one that I barely recorded on my camera, but you kind of have to use some imagination to see it. Anyway, I have two poems to offer you tonight. The first one is very short and very sad. It's by Walt Whitman, and it's called Look Down, Fair Moon. It was written right at the end of the Civil War. Look down, fair moon, and bathe this scene. Pour softly down night's nimbus floods on faces ghastly, swollen, on the dead on their backs with arms tossed wide. Pour down your unstinted nimbus, sacred moon. And I just love how this very sad poem begins with the lovely moon, goes on and talks about the dead people from the Civil War, and then ends with the unstinted nimbus sacred moon again, and that makes it just lovely. The second poem was written a little bit after that, and I think it's my most favorite poem at all. But I think of it often when I'm giving a talk and wondering if there's people in the audience, like now, who'd rather just jump out and do what the writer of this poem is about to do. And it goes like this. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon unaccountable I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself, missed moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. Thank you very much. Let's enjoy the meeting.
Thank you, David. Okay, it is now time for me to sit back and hand things over to First Vice President and Program Chair Dr. Dale Bertin to introduce tonight's speaker.
Well, thank you, Diane, and hello again, everyone. Tonight, our speaker needs no introduction except for those who are new to this society. Ken Bertin has been a member of this organization since 1993. Had to go look that up. And he was awarded a lifetime membership for service to the Warren Club. He has served as first vice president and as president, and is one of the most prolific presenters we have, if not the most prolific, not sure, one or the other. Tonight, I'm going to introduce Ken just this once, but he's going to give two presentations, two more notches in his belt, so to speak. The first one, I think he'll do this one first, is a review of astronomy discoveries in 2020. And the second one, I might as well say it now, involves the fact that Ken has a special interest in the lives of astronomers who made significant discoveries historically. Tonight, his selection for us is the life of Giovanni Cassini. Ken, take it away.
Okay. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. I threw together the in the news of 2020. I got some suggestions from people who used most of the suggestions. I did not get all the great things that happened. There were a whole bunch of things, and thank goodness for Diane for bringing in Hayabusa. That I didn't include it this time, and I really appreciate her doing that. But I did get a couple of other things that way. So let's get this over here, and let me get this up here on the board here. Hold on a second. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I want to share it. Hold on. We're going to put it over here, and let's. Do you have it yet, everybody?
Not yet, Ken. I don't see it.
Me either.
Okay. Hold on a second. Let's do it again.
Shout out to Michael Desmond.
There it is. I think we got it. There it is.
Yep, we see it now.
Okay. All right. So let me start this puppy right here. There we go. How's that? Does that work?
We're good now, Ken.
Okay,
Yep.
good. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the great things of 2020. The first was obviously Neowise, the comet Neowise. It's a long period comet with a near parabolic orbit, discovered on March 27, 2020 by astronomers during the Neowise mission of the Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, WISE Space Telescope. At that time, it was an 18th magnitude star, 190 million miles away and from the sun and 160 miles away from the Earth. Neowise is known for being the brightest comet in the Northern Hemisphere since Comet Hale-Bopp in 1997. It was widely photographed by professional and amateur astronomers and even spotted by people living near city centers in areas with light pollution. While it was too close to the sun to be observed at perihelion, it emerged from perihelion with a magnitude of 0.5 to 1, making it bright enough to be visible with the naked eye. And under dark skies, it could be seen with the naked eye and remain visible with the naked eye through July of 2020. By July 30th, the comet was about magnitude 5 when binoculars were required near urban areas to locate the comet. For observers in the Northern Hemisphere, the comet could be seen on the northwestern horizon below the Big Dipper. And on July 30th, it entered the constellation of Coma Berenices, below the bright star of Arcturus. From the infrared signature, the diameter of the comet nucleus is estimated to be about 3 miles. Second very interesting thing that occurred was you remember the historically close approach of Mars in 2003. At that time, Mars was closer than it had been in 60,000 years. On October the 6th, 2020, the 4,120 mile in diameter Mars was closest for this 2-year period, only a bit farther away than in 2003, 2018. On October 6th this year, presented Earth and Mars closer together than it will be until September of 2035. At the precise time, Mars was about 38.57 million miles from us with a magnitude of negative 2.62. Next question that came out was the dimming of the hyper-red giant Betelgeuse, or Betelgeuse, was exciting because it's a well-known fact that the star will someday explode. Was the sudden dimming of Betelgeuse a sign that it would explode soon? Speculation raged for weeks, and as we gaze toward a fainter Betelgeuse than we'd ever seen before, the star did not explode. February of 2020, the 725 light-year distance, or thereabouts, Betelgeuse lost more than 2/3 of its brilliance, a dimming visible even to the unaided eye, creating a buzz that the star might be going supernova. Continued ultraviolet light spectroscopy observations with Hubble provided a timeline for researchers to follow, like breadcrumbs leading back through time to pinpoint the source of the mysterious dimming. This four-panel graphic illustrates how the southern region of the rapidly evolving bright red supergiant Betelgeuse may have suddenly become fainter for several months during late 2019 and early 2020. In the first two panels, as seen in ultraviolet light with the Hubble Space Telescope, a bright, hot blob of plasma is ejected from the emergence of a huge convection cell on the star's surface. In panel 3, the outflowing expelled gas rapidly expands outward. It cools to form an enormous cloud of obscuring dust grains. The final panel reveals the huge dust cloud blocking the light as seen from the Earth from a quarter of the star's surface. This is a credit to NASA, the European Space Agency, and E. Whitley from the Institute. Talking about eclipses this year, we had several. We had a lunar eclipse not visible from Michigan on January the 10th. We had another lunar eclipse on June the 5th, also not visible from Michigan. Both of those were penumbral eclipses. On June the 21st, there was a solar eclipse, also not visible to Michigan of the United States. It was actually through India. And then on July 4th, we had a lunar eclipse that was visible from Michigan from about 11 p.m. to 1:50 p.m. And that was also 50 a.m. rather, was also a penumbral eclipse. On November the 30th, we had a lunar eclipse visible from Michigan from 2:30 a.m. to 6:50 a.m. This will be better, the better of two eclipses from Michigan this last year. That was also penumbral. And then on December the 14th, we had a total solar eclipse not visible from Michigan, was visible from South America, one of which I would have liked to have gone to, but COVID took care of that trip. With SpaceX's first astronaut launch, a new era of human spaceflight dawned. On May the 30th, and the NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken made history when they launched aboard the SpaceX capsule, becoming the first astronauts to launch to the orbit from the U.S. in nearly a decade. There is a picture of the two astronauts, and the spacecraft docked on May 31st, starting a 63-day mission and returned to the Earth on August the 2nd. Another interesting thing that was done, OSIRIS-REx collected a sample from asteroid Bennu. The spacecraft collected a significant amount of the asteroid. That was on October the 23rd, 2020. 2 days after touching down on asteroid Bennu, OSIRIS-REx mission team received on Thursday, October the 26th, images that confirmed the spacecraft has collected more than enough material to meet one of its main emission requirements, acquiring at least 2 ounces or 60 grams of the asteroid's surface material. China promises to share findings from its new return lunar probe after 23 days and some 230,000 miles traveled. China's Change E5 lunar capsule returned to the Earth during Thursday's pre-dawn hours, carried cargo from more than 4 pounds of first fresh samples of moon rocks and other debris in more than 40 years. China's space agency said Thursday it intends to share its findings. Like I said, the capsule for Change E5 probe landed in Mongolia, in the Mongolian region, and it's first set off for the moon on November the 24th, year before. The safe return of the lunar capsule wraps a groundbreaking mission for Chinese space exploration program. It made China just the third country to explore the moon's surface behind the U.S. and the former Soviet Union. It was also the first country to do it since 1976, when the former Soviet Union's Luna 24 spacecraft returned from the moon. And a little bit of tragic news. The Arecibo telescope collapsed, ending a 57-year run. It's gone. It's a 900-ton instrument platform suspended from a dish in the Carts Hills of Puerto Rico. It collapsed on December the 1st at about 8 a.m. local time. The manager was the name Raymond Lugo, who stressed felt terrible about all the jobs that were lost because of it. It couldn't survive long enough to be controlled demolition. It was on the brink of collapse for several days prior. Lugo says no one was near the dish when the platform fell, and believes that it was because of a failure of one of the remaining cables connecting the platform to one of 3 support towers. These cables were carrying extra stress following the 2 previous failures. Since the Thanksgiving holiday, Hugo says wires were breaking and those remaining cables at a rate of 1 per day. And he said it'd only be about a couple of weeks. And of course, he was right. Engineers are currently inspecting the condition of the 3 supporting towers and to see whether they can together how it collapsed. He worries about the 130 observatory staff members in their future. Can't imagine how they feel. By the way, you can actually see this collapse physically online at www.cbc.cbc.ca/player/play. And then it'll give you a bunch of numbers behind it, but then you'll be able to see that actually online. And if I had more time, I would have done that for you, but I'm not going to. Yes, and of course, on Monday, December the 21st, Saturn and Jupiter went into conjunction closer than they had been since 1630, separated by 6 minutes of arc, 1/5 the width of the moon. The next conjunction of the separation will occur in 2080 with a small telescope, the Galilean moons, Jupiter and Saturn's Titan, Mimas, and Phoebe are clearly visible. I've got several shots of that. Here's another very good one. And here's another one. This is actually one of the better ones, I think. You can actually see the moons of Titan up and to the right of Saturn. And this is, of course, the one that was done with detail attached to it, obviously. We also discussed about the Mars 2020 is a Mars rover, the mission by NASA's Mars exploration program that includes the Perseverance rover and the Ingenuity helicopter drone. It was launched on the 30th of July 2020 and will touch down in Jezero crater on the 18th of February 2021. This year, the NASA measured the wind speed of on a brown dwarf. This was done on April the 20th. Not quite planets, not quite stars. Brown dwarfs are cosmic in-betweeners. Learning about their atmospheres would help us understand giant planets around the stars. Additionally, the first ever photo proof of a powerful jet emerging from colliding galaxies on the 7th of April. From Clemson University, researchers have reported the first detection of a realistic on-axis jet emerging from 2 colliding galaxies. The first photographic proof that merging galaxies can produce jets of fast-moving charged particles. Scientists had previously discovered the jets could be found in elliptical-shaped galaxies, which can be formed in the merging of 2 spiral galaxies. Now they have an image showing the formation of a jet from 2 younger spiral-shaped galaxies. And the last story is the scientists discovered a supernova that outshines all others. This was April the 13th from the University of Birmingham. Supernova at least twice as bright and energetic and likely much more massive than any yet recorded was identified by an international team of astronomers. And let's see if we got that. And I guess that's what you got as the lead stories of 2020. Are there any questions? Then we're good. I will give you back the team.
All right. Thank you very much, Ken. Let's see. Do we have any questions or comments coming in? David Levy says regarding the conjunction, glad you mentioned the previous one. It was actually 1623, but that was only in daylight. So yes, humans had to wait 800 years between conjunctions. If anybody was orbiting us in a spaceship, they might have seen one 400 years ago. All right, so that was the year that was.
I
now...
I did have a question for Ken.
Sure, go ahead.
What would you say was the most positive story in 2020, and what was the most negative story? I know what the most negative story really was, but
the loss of Arecibo was absolutely, and it was underfunded, and there was a bunch of other reasons that it went down. It wasn't maintenance the way it should have been. That was the worst story. I got to tell you, the best story of the whole damn year for me absolutely was the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. I thought that was just nifty as hell, and that to me was the neatest story because everybody got to share in it, and to me that was what made it so very, very cool. But again, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. So whatever you like best. I just thought that was just nifty.
Yeah, don't forget that the fervor that the comet brought.
Oh, for sure.
Middle of summer.
Yep.
We had people that were flocking to dark sites, and normally you go to a dark site and you're like, okay, there won't be as many people. It was a party atmosphere a couple of those nights, and we're in the middle of going, I guess we should mask or something because it was just crazy. There were people everywhere.
However, Adrian, the difference is that we did have Hale-Bopp during our lifetimes. We did have Halley. We have not had conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn in our lifetime.
That is true.
Right? So that's the only reason I put that
and
up
that didn't draw as much of a crowd. Maybe it was because it was winter.
Yeah.
I mean, middle of summer, people needing something to do.
No question.
But I was out for both, and I had more of the park to myself during the conjunction.
And thank you, David, for 1623. I said it was in the 1630, but it was in that period of time, and it wasn't very well seen, by the way, as I understand, because it was too close to the sun.
Yeah, I would
comment. Thank you, but you may have actually left out the other part of the message that I really enjoyed your summary. It was very, very well done. And I even shed a tear when you showed the Arecibo thing. I am glad to hear that there's a movement to rebuild it and make a better one. And let's hope that happens. I think it should be called the Warren Astronomical Society Arecibo Radio Telescope.
I would be interested to know if how many of you have actually visited it, have seen it. Any of you seen it? I got the opportunity several years to go down there with my wife.
Dale, this would be your moment to shine, Dale.
So Cheryl and I were down there. Right up in the WAS. Was it last episode edition? A trip I went a couple of years ago.
What year was it? Yes, the
read the trip report in the WAS. It's my first article.
It really was impressive to look at. It was pretty impressive.
Cheryl and I were there with you, Kenny. It was 1998.
98 when we went to see it in Thompson and Aruba, right?
I think mine was 2019.
Oh, okay.
Was it 2018? I get my years confused. It was very recent.
I think when we went to that thing at the thing in the middle of it, that thing that was hanging there,
the Gregorian.
I think that was just built it around that point. I think it wasn't.
It was new then, yes.
It was brand new. I think it was. Yeah.
I would comment that I think the comet was the big story, and I say that because for those of us who've been around for a while, we got spoiled by Hale-Bopp. But there's the younger generation that didn't see it, or were too little to appreciate it. And for them, comet NEO-wise was really a big deal. And I echo Adrian's comments. I would go to a dark sky site and it would be flooded with people.
Sure.
I'd drive along country roads and there'd be people out there with binoculars, you know. Too early in the evening, I'd stop and say, come back in an hour if you want to see it, you know. They were just so anxious to see it. There's something about a comet that grabs people.
Truly.
And don't forget, there's a whole very large generation that is too young to remember Hale-Bopp or Hyakutake.
Truly.
But for a large chunk of people, this was their first good comet.
Sure.
Yeah, and I kept having to answer questions. Can you see it yet? Can you see it yet? Can you see it yet? And so those of us that are visual astronomers would pick up its faint signal before anyone else generally would. So we would say, "Oh yeah, we can see it," and where? And so it would take some time before they would finally see it. And you know, we were all concerned at the time because we weren't sure about transmission of COVID and being outdoors. People would be up in our faces asking if we could see it. So a lot of times we'd go and we'd just plan to have a mask just so that, you know, we knew to be safe about it. But because it was outreach at that point. We wanted to share what we knew. And, you know, I had my camera, people had telescopes, but there was so much fervor over it. It was, you know, that safe social distancing was a little tough. So that I remember there being, with all the excitement, there was a little concern too that would come out, but it was still a great time, and I got, you know, a lot of us got some great photos of it.
Well,
we got close.
You know, just to add on that, like the second worst thing after the death of Arecibo for me was that we had two tremendously public-friendly astronomical occurrences in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yep.
And we could have picked up, you know, we picked up a lot of members, and thanks to all of you who are here who have joined during the pandemic, but I think we would have picked up even more people had there not been a pandemic going on, if we had been able to do events with Cranbrook, events at Stargate, you know.
No question.
It's so frustrating that, you know, we wait and wait and wait for a bright comet, and it finally comes and it's a pandemic. It almost makes you wonder if the whole comet thing has something to it.
Maybe.
Well, you are the Comets of Doom person, Jonathan.
I know.
You need to resurrect that at some point.
No.
Okay. That was
good. It's a good thing the comet came after, or at least was easily visible after COVID started, or people would be blaming the comet for COVID.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I would be surprised
if they still did.
Okay, gang. It's 8:36. I'd like to give y'all a good, 15 minutes to take a bio break, get something to drink. I'm sure Ken's going to need a sip of water or juice because
I'm ready.
Yeah. So 15 minutes, share your photos, chill, hang out. We will come back here at 10 to 9 and Ken will do his feature presentation.
I'm gonna go eat something, so I'll be back in a minute too. Thanks.
You still there, Adrian?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, sorry I overdid that. Congratulations. I'm sure if you took a picture of a paperclip, it would not be as pretty, but there's just something about the pictures you take that are just wonderful.
Let's see, where am I at?
Like, take a look at these.
Trumpeter swan that flew in. The reason I went to this, your article reminded me of some pictures that I took. These are just, I would consider these just sort of ordinary moon pictures, but I started to play around with making the moon into a moonburst, and I believe there are so many here that you can kind of see. I've got some moonburst pictures, and I've got this going on. I believe this is the one that I process if it'll just okay
Adrian, what
there.
kind of camera do you use on these?
This is a
About-
Canon 6D. It's a full frame camera, and the lens I had was a 24-105. In fact, I'll go get the kit that I use to make all of my night shots. It looks pretty simple, but a lot of it is figuring out the the right exposure time and length, and then if tracking something, pointing the whole rig north and letting it track to help the stars get into focus, things like that. But yeah, it's a Canon 6D, which I actually had bought that used. I'd bought a number of lenses. The faster the lens, the the more light. It all about pulling in all this light and then dealing with it and composing it. Like I took the shot, and this is one of those raw, unprocessed shots that I took. I can, you can do things with the sky, the clouds, things like that, but composing your picture does so much to it. I mean, this picture right here, and I just zoomed in too much. This is one where I didn't use the moon. I just wanted I wanted to see if I could get a closer up of some of the stuff going on over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, composing shots was something that I learned from a daytime photography online course that I took, but I'd always been interested in the stars. I mean, reading through your book, I see a lot of parallels, and just things go wrong, you look up, and looking up at the stars, it always brings me a sense of calm and peace. And when I started doing photography, I actually started with night photography. I didn't start by taking pictures of daytime and landscapes, because I learned later on that sometimes you can be told never move your ISO up a certain way, or you get told restrictions that you have to throw out of the window when you're shooting at night, or even shooting Astro. And I'm going to go back to Lightroom again. It's something that just, I enjoy travel. I enjoy doing it. There are those that, would rather do it through telescopes or whatever, but I really, I really enjoy just being out there. Let's see if this is the one. I've got a bunch of shots, but no, it's not.
Thanks for sending me the link again. You saved me, so I was able to get in. I didn't know what happened with the irregular link this time, but when you sent me that message, I was able to get in.
Yeah, a lot of people that had that issue.
We think it may have been reset on Webex's end because of the new year. So
I don't know why possible, but that's I don't know why they would.
Yeah, just trying different shots, even when it's cloudy out. I mean, we were all trying to see the aurora.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at every one of these pictures, and I think every one of them, even the one of the back of the chair, could be a cover picture for Time magazine. I'm probably overstating that a bit, but the one you're showing now with the lighthouse could easily be a cover for Time magazine. It's just wonderful what you're able to do with a camera. You make the camera speak to you.
That's the whole goal. Look at stars, David, peeking through the clouds. There's Orion. There's the belt.
Yeah.
It's dark enough out there that even with this glaring light and everything, and look at how many stars are showing. There's Sirius just peeking through the clouds. Imagine this sight when it's clear. That's what drives me to go. It's like, I'm going to go back when I can. So I go far enough to where it is clear. That's a raw picture of all the stars, and coming up. This is me trying to process it. getting things like this nebula here, the belt, the rosette, all of that's coming out in an unmodified camera. Going somewhere dark is what you do. I'll always be proud of that, and that's a 90-second shot. Dale, you've got a beautiful shot of this where you've taken some more frames and some more integration. I know you live out that way, and getting data is just it's a lot easier. That's all camera. This is a bit of a smaller view of it. It's all camera. It's you don't often see, okay, here's something from Earth, and here's stuff that I'm getting with about 120-second exposure. All of these stars in the sky out by Port Austin. That's what you want to see. It's you can get this detail if you integrate more time, using dedicated Astro cameras and things. You can, I mean, there are some fantastic shots, but for me, it's just the being under all of these stars, taking an image where I'm at and getting all of this out of, without even modifying my camera.
Could you go back to the one where you have all of Orion framed by the trees? One of those.
Let's see. This is one. I took a long exposure, so
Adrian,
the trees
you know
are.
What that picture speaks to me, because it doesn't just show Orion with the trees and the sky behind the trees. It's as if the sky is saying, "I've got a secret, and I'm just going to show it to you in this little break in the trees." That's what it tells me. Isn't it something, Diane? Isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, I hope you put that onto the calendar. That is just wonderful.
I'll probably have something like this into Dale for 2022. The picture that is on the calendar, and unfortunately I don't have it as a background. I'd have to find it in here. The picture on the calendar is the Milky Way shot. It's January's picture. It's a Milky Way shot that I did, a composite over Lake Hudson. I'll find it. It's in here. I know it is.
This picture really speaks to me. It's just superb. Congratulations.
Yeah, with all of this with all of this detail here, you go back in and you take the whole picture in and you just see, this is what's there.
Just beautiful. Wonderful pictures. Thank you.
Well, Laura, thank you. I'm not the only one that feels that way about Adrian's photography.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I might be overdoing this.
It's been in process. For those of us in Ann Arbor, this is what you can get at Broward Nature Preserve. It's beautiful there too.
Yeah.
And here's a little bit more process to. Oh no, wait, that's the sky shot.
Wow.
Okay, I must have. Yeah, there you go. What I like about this is there's some Milky Way detail, but this land here with that tree, beautiful park. And somewhere around there, I think I used this same tree as a foil for the comet. And I'll quickly show that.
Gets to me in this. The sky is wonderful, but the background of the trees and the park is what really, and then the comet over the water. It's just
the Mackinac shots too.
Yeah, let's see. I've got just focusing right in. I have a print of this. There's the same spot. All the lightning bugs and the comet playing there it is. The comet is it's part of the backdrop. I would consider this more of a nightscape. An astrophoto, it's a raging debate. It's more of an astrophoto, and you're looking directly at the comet.
Yeah.
Whereas this is more of a nightscape. But to me, it's all a part of astro. It's astrophotography
Gorgeous.
has grown to include showcasing the night sky even from Earth. If you look at definitions, the astrophotography definitions, anything outside of Earth's atmosphere. But personally, I think we need to change those definitions to say even if we're on Earth's atmosphere, it doesn't have to be just
2 minutes.
the object. So
Okay, I think we got to get back to the meeting.
yeah, we got to get back to somewhere in here.
Boss is paging us, Adrian.
Yep. So I'll stop sharing here. You can see my shot in the calendar. I'll let the calendar. I'll let that be curiosity. If you want to see my January shot, it's in the calendar along with a few other. I will call it classic astrophotography when you're shooting directly at an object in space and you're imaging that. There are some beautiful classic astro photos that our group takes, and I think as we go along, I think it all should be. Maybe I'll do a presentation on it if I can put together my thoughts on classic astrophotography versus nightscapes and what they mean to astrophotography. Yeah,
Sounds good. Dale, Dr. Dale, sign this man up for a talk.
I will. I'll put something together.
And it is 8:50 on the nose. I will hand things back over to Dr. Dale Parton to do as he sees fit.
Well, thank you, Diane. I was looking for Ken. Where's Ken? And
I'm coming, I swear.
Well, as I mentioned, Ken is going to give a presentation, which is classic Ken Bertin. It's on an astronomer of historical significance. In this case, Giovanni Cassini, who Ken can confirm, I think he was Italian, right?
Well, he was Italian, but he became a Frenchman. That's an interesting story, but go ahead.
Yep. Okay. So, Ken, I don't have more to say. Take it away. It's all yours.
All right, let me grab the screen. Let's get that over there. See if it's got share. There we go. And let's do this right here. How's that look? Everybody got it?
We got it.
Okay, good. Okay, we're actually going to discuss Giovanni Cassini and just briefly, his three heirs. He has his son, his grandson, and his great-grandson all became directors of the Paris Observatory, but we'll talk about that as we get into it. So here we have Giovanni Dominique Cassini, who lived from 1624 to 1712. He was born in June 8th of 1625 in Pirinaldo in Imperia, Italy. His parents were Jacopo and Giacomo Cassini. He was Giacomo, it was actually his father, he was a Tuscan, and Giulia or Tulia Corvesi Cassini, who he lived from 1604 to 1672. She lived from 1605 to 1677. I couldn't find their picture, so there you go. All right. He was not raised by his parents, but rather by his uncle Giovanni Antonio Maria Corvesi, the brother of his mother. It is important here to point out that in later life, Cassini emigrated to France, where he changed his name to the French version of Jean-Dominique Cassini. He is known to historians as Cassini I, since his son, then his grandson, and finally his great-grandson all succeeded him as directors of the Paris Observatory. He was first educated by his uncle, who determined early on that the child was exceptionally bright. His formal education was by Father Procio at Valenbrone, where he spent the last 2 years. After Valabona, Cassini entered the Jesuit college at Genoa, Italy, and where he studied under Caselli. This schooling was followed by several years of study at the Abbey of San Tosio, and the great historian René Taton wrote, Cassini showed great intellectual curiosity and was especially interested in poetry, mathematics, and astronomy. Apparently, his formal education concluded when Cassini and later associate Philip de la Hire studied together under the Jesuit scientist, mathematician, and physicist Honoré Frébré at the College de la Trinité in Lyon, Cassini's first French experience. His interest was more directed toward astrology than astronomy. He was well-read on the topic, becoming very knowledgeable about it in a short time, yet he was also convinced there was no truth whatsoever to astrological predictions. In fact, he was at first influenced to not pursue astrology as a career when he read a pamphlet by Pico della Mirandola, which disputed the value of astrological predictions. Even so, his first appointment in 1644 was by the Marquis Cornelio Marvesia, a senator from Bologna, who had a great interest in astrology. Malvasia offered Cassini a position in Paris Observatory, which was being constructed at the time. Actually, Malvasia in 1662 invented a form of micrometer for use with telescopes. Cassini came to realize the importance of precise observation after meeting with the Jesuit Giovanni Battista Recchioli, who lived from 1598 to 1671. Riccioli had written and published the 1651 treatise Almagestrum Novum. Cassini was also greatly influenced by the works of Francesco Maria Grimaldi, the discoverer of diffraction, whose 1665 posthumously published the work De Lumine. Both of these scholars moved Cassini toward intellectual conservatism so prevalent in his life work. In 1648, at the behest of Malvasia, Cassini traveled to Bologna to observe at the Panzano Observatory, where he remained as an astronomer through 1669. Also, with the construction of the new meridian, an instrument for solar measurements, at the top of the church of San Petronio, one of the largest churches ever built, allowed Cassini to make extremely accurate solar observations. His work led to his appointment in 1650 to succeed Bonaventura Cavalieri as chair of astronomy and mathematics at the University of Bologna. Cassini observed the great comet of 1652 and 1653. He published an account of his observations, which he dedicated to an early patron, the Duke of Modena, who lived from 1610 to 1658. Cassini observed and reported on many comets throughout his life, even though he really never understood their true nature. One of his predecessors, a professor of math and astronomy, Ignato Dante, who around 1576 had constructed a gnomon in the church of San Petronio. Cassini felt, after seeing the device, that it could be significantly improved. Those are the gnomons, or gnomons, I guess. I don't think you pronounce the G, but I think it's correct. This small hole allows the rays of the sun to enter the church and form a small solar image. Cassini discovered that he could do some measurements with it, but found it barely usable and proposed in 1653 to build a new, larger version of it. His calculations were exceptionally precise, and the final construction of this new dome added considerably to Cassini's already impressive reputation. He made many important observations with it and published in 1656 his specimen Observationum Bonanisium. Look at these words, I can't believe them. And dedicated to this Queen of Sweden, who was in exile in Italy at the time. Giovanni Cassini was skilled in many areas beyond astronomy. He was interested in entomology and blood flow. His expertise in hydraulics and engineering helped to solve the dispute in 1657 between the cities of Bologna and Ferrara on the course of the river Reno. Pope Alexander VII utilized Cassini's knowledge to settle the issue, and for many years after this occurrence, he was also often consulted by the papal court as an expert in river management. Cassini wrote many treatises on this aspect of his work, particularly involving the flooding of the River Po. His interest even expanded to include religious matters, in which that will still whilst he was still in the Pope's employ. While there, he also sent a transcript to Jesuit Riccoli dealing with the Immaculate Conception and recommending that it be celebrated at as a special feast. In 1659, Cassini proposed a planetary system model that was consistent with the hypothesis of the Danish astronomer Tycho Brahe. In 1661, he developed a way to predict successive phases of solar eclipses by using the method based on the work of Johann Kepler. Although he disagreed with Kepler's laws of planetary motion, particularly that the planets move in elliptical orbits, he continued his research in astronomy, proposed a model of atmospheric refraction that ultimately turned out to be incorrect. He spent many hours of intensive study of the sun, publishing a set of tables in 1662, while continuing his research on comets. Pope Alexander VII wanted Cassini to work permanently for him, and Cassini was able to work out a deal with the pontiff so that he could continue his post as professor of mathematics and astronomy at Bologna when not undertaking church-related duties. In 1663, the brother of the Pope, Mario Chigi, employed him as superintendent of fortifications, which led in 1665 to his being named superintendent of the waters of the ecclesiastical states. Pope Alexander, and that's a little bit about that there. In 1664, Cassini observed a comet, which led to propose a new theory about comets. The theory, comets travel in circular orbits around the sun, with the center of the orbit in the direction of the star Sirius, obviously an error. Also in 1664, Cassini was able to conserve with new telescopes made by the world-renowned lens maker Giuseppe Capani of Rome. And with these instruments, you can see the instrument there. Cassini made a series of new discoveries. In July of 1664, he measured the period of rotation of Jupiter on its axis. He discovered that there were numerous bands and spots on the planet, and the planet was flattened at its poles. In fact, he shares credit with Robert Hooke with the discovery of Jupiter's Great Red Spot in 1665. In 1666, he measured the period of rotation of Mars on its axis, so accurate that this measurement that it was within 3 minutes of the correct one. He also was able to observe some of Mars' surface features. And in 1668, he published a detailed series of observations of the moons of Jupiter while charting the Medici planets, so named by Galileo Galilei in 1610. Notice that there were some great discrepancies in the data, which at first he attributed to a light having a finite speed. Light takes some time to come from a satellite to us. It takes approximately 10 to 11 minutes to traverse the distance equal to the semi-diameter of the Earth's orbit. Unfortunately, Cassini was too conservative in his views to accept his own idea and soon rejected it, and looked for another explanation for the discrepancy. The irony of this data that was used by Ole Oemer to actually do the measurement for the first time. Cassini's brilliant discoveries made him international celebrity and was invited to Paris by Louis the 14th. In 1668. The Paris Observatory was being constructed, and Cassini was offered a generous salary, free accommodation, and a substantial travel allowance to head the project, which included utilizing the high-quality Campani Rome lenses. Pope Clement IX and the Senate of Bologna at Bologna agreed to the trip, believing that it was the last at most 8 to 9 months. Cassini fully intended to return to Italy, indicated by the fact he did not attempt to improve his French, or find permanent lodging. While in France, Cassini became deeply involved in the Academy of Science and became part of a circle of scientists originally formed by Honoré Febvre, which included Claude-François Millier, Descartes, Philippe de la Hara, Christian Huygens, and his brother Constantine Huygens Jr., Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, René Descartes, and Marion Mersenne. Named the head of the Paris Observatory in 1671, the position which he held for the next 40 years, soon changed his views on returning to Italy, and he became a French citizen in 1673. At this point, as mentioned earlier, he decided to change his name to Jean-Dominique Cassini, even though he was actually recruited heavily by Jean-Baptiste Colbert, who was the 1666 founder of the Academy of Sciences. There was resistance by the Academy members to a non-Frenchman being the head of the Academy, as there had been with his predecessor, Dutchman Christian Huygens. But hard work, along with becoming a French citizen, gradually gained essential support. Also, the fact that he was Catholic, whereas Huygens was not. In 1674, he married Genevieve de Lestre, the daughter of the lieutenant general and the Comte of Clermont. Genevieve's dowry included the Chateau du Thury that became the Cassini's summer residence for succeeding generations of the family. A quick note about Cassini lineage. Cassini and his wife had 2 sons and a daughter. The younger Jacques Cassini was born in 1677 and eventually succeeded his father as head of the Paris Observatory. His grandson, César Francois Cassini, followed Jacques as the head of the observatory, and the great-grandson, Jean-Dominique Cassini, succeeded César. He had some difficulties with Claude Perrault, the brilliant architect who designed both the Paris Observatory and the colonnade at the Louvre. Cassini wanted the building more suitable for astronomical observatory, observing then for its appearance, and argued with Perot in front of the king about it. Perot won out in the end, but Cassini set up his telescopes outside and went right to work. Cassini, one, continued to make revolutionary discoveries. His first telescope was a Campini 5.5 meter long refractor with an object in glass of 8 centimeters, which he brought with him from Italy. While it was first to observe the Saturn moon's Aetopus in 1671, he found Rhea in 1672 using the 11 meter long telescope with an 11 centimeter aperture lens. Tethys and Dione were discovered in 1684 using Campani lenses of 32 and 44 meter focal length aerial telescopes that were tubeless, and the lenses were either mounted on the roof of the observatory or on a tower. Initially, he discovered, on discovering the Saturnian moons, somewhat mimicking Galileo's original naming of the moons of Jupiter, which Galileo had called Sidera Medici, honoring the Medici family. Zeno named his moons Sidera Laodicea, or the Louisian moons, in honor of his patron, Louis XIV. The names by which we know them today were given in 1847. There's a little bit more of the scope that we talked about. And there is the scope that is extended from the building. You can see that. And that was the way refractors really got their great focal length at the time, well before the later inventions. He also confirmed a gap in the Cassini ring system of Saturn, noticed first by William Bale 10 years earlier, now known as the Cassini division, in 1675. What was most impressive is that he correctly surmised that the rings of Saturn were comprised of a large number of tiny satellites, each orbiting the planet. In 1679, while studying the causes of librations of the moon, he drew a large chart of the moon, which he presented to the Academy of Sciences. The drawing remained the very best available prior to the invention of photography. A side note here about his drawing, as said before, Cassini married Genevieve, magnificent woman 30 years of age at the time, while Cassini was 48, and it is said that to show his love, he secretly inserted a profile image of her into his drawing in the region of the Promontorium.
I couldn't
Hercules.
find any matches in your photo.
I hate that thing. Hold on.
Have you got the photo of that, Ken?
What's that? Excuse me, I'm getting there.
Okay.
There's one of the pictures of it right there. Hold on a second, everyone. I just got an argument with Siri on my phone. When I said something, it asked me if I needed something. I love it. All right, okay. I don't know whether there's a picture of it as I recall. Maybe there is. I don't know. We'll take a look. Yeah, on the drawing that you saw. There you are, right there. There it is. You see it? There's her
Yeah, I
head.
do now. That picture took a second to load.
Yeah, it took a second to load. That's right. Okay. It actually resembles a woman's head when observed near the terminator. Jean Patagny. There's a little bit more of the Jean Patagny. Let me see where he went. Hold on a second. Let me go back. Give me a second here. I'll get up with you. I promise. That's what I wanted. There we go. Jean Patagny produced a copper plate engraving for the great map with the moon, an impressive 53 centimeters in diameter, which Cassini also presented to the Academy of Sciences in 1679. By the way, this painting of Madame Cassini was actually a photograph, was actually drawn by Patagny's 11-year-old son, Jean Patagny, and was presented to the town hall of Clermont by Jean-Dominique Cassini IV in 1844, and is still hanging there today. He was probably the first to observe and recognize and theorize about zodiacal light during his years in Paris. Cassini contributed to determining longitude by utilizing tables he produced of Jupiter's moons. He provided a universal time with which to compare the local time at various positions on the Earth. Scientists were sent out from Paris, sent out to measure longitude in numerous places, and Jean Picard, actually, this is John Picard, okay, and Cassini remained in Paris while Jean Richter made measurements. John Richter made measurements. Hold on a second. Of Mars from Ceyenne, French Guiana. From the data collected, a first accurate value of the solar parallax was determined, yielding an accurate distance from the Earth to the Sun. Richter determined that a pendulum needed to be shorter to measure a second in Ceyenne than one used in Paris. This finding indicated the Earth was flattened at the poles. Even though this supported the theoretical proposals of both Isaac Newton and Christian Huygens, because of his reserved conservatism, Cassini rejected Richter's proposals. Cassini wanted to maintain the premise. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. He wanted to maintain his premise that the Earth was a perfect sphere. And in fact, in 1683, Cassini proposed measuring an arc of the meridian from the north of France to the south. While he performed the task in Paris, he sent Philip de la Hire to begin making measurements north from Paris. This project was canceled for financial reasons in 1684. And this gives a little bit more of the... All right, in 1695, Cassini traveled with his son Jacques to Italy in order to make numerous geodesic observations. During this trip, he returned to the church of San Petronio in Bologna in order to repair the gnomon, which he had designed 30 years before. In 1700, the Meridian project was revived. Along with several other scientists, Cassini and his son make measurements of the meridian from Paris to Perpignan. His results, however, indicated the Earth was elongated at the poles. Cassini was elated by this discovery, even though it was wrong, because he supposedly disproved Newton's theory of gravity, which Cassini had rejected. His avocation was odd in that he, in fact, had observed the flattening of Jupiter at its poles. In 1680, he studied and developed the Cassinian curve, which is the locus of a point, the product of those of whose distances from two fixed foci is constant. This brought about the conclusion, again incorrect, that the relative motions of the Earth and the Sun proved a curve for planetary orbits rather than an ellipse proposed by Kepler. It took another 100 years for scientists to fully accept Kepler because of the popularity of Cassini's prognostications. Cassini continued his studies, but his infirmities started to catch up with him. And by 1709, while still effective as an observer, his eyesight began to fail. So he returned the duties of director of the observatory to his son, Jacques. In 1710, the elder Cassini was no longer able to observe and was completely blind by 1711. The historian Fontenelle said that Cassini, calm and gentle character, coming from a deeply religious belief, allowed him to bear nearly total blindness in good cheer. Jean-Dominique Cassini died on September the 14th, 1712, at the Paris Observatory. There are many who believe if Cassini had not been so conservative in his views, he would have contributed much more. Jean-Baptiste Joseph de Lambra, of 1749 to 1822, a well-respected mathematician and astronomer in his own right, believed that Cassini's contribution to astronomy was overrated, accusing him of having found his best ideas in the writings of his predecessors. Others insist on the importance of his work as an observer and organizer of the research at the Paris Observatory. Up until the time of his death, Cassini continued to work for the king while training astronomers and organizing the progress of work in astronomy and cartography. The historian René Téton said of Cassini was, quote, he was not a theoretician. He was, however, a gifted observer, and his indisputable discoveries are significant to win him a high position among the astronomers of the pre-Newtonian generation. John, the following are some of the other accomplishments of Cassini. In 1693, Cassini provided a set of laws dealing with the motion of the moon. These were soon generally applied to the planets and other satellites, and led to the Cassini state. A system obeying these laws is said to be in a Cassini state, that is, an evolved rotational state where the spin axis, orbit normal, and normal to the Laplace plane are coplanar, while the obliquity remains constant. Obliquity, I guess is what it is, yes. The Laplace plane is defined as a plane about which a planet's orbit precesses with constant inclination to the equatorial and ecliptic planes. And this is the formula right there. And it was proved by Robert Simpson in 1753 with this formula. Another formula contributed to Cassini, who developed in 1680, is called the Cassini identity, a mathematical identity for the Fibonacci numbers, which was proven by Robert Simpson again in 1753. Of course, as mentioned earlier, the Cassini curves and ovals. Cassini has several things named after him, including Rue Cassini, a major road in Paris, a region of the Saturnian moon Oedipus, called the Cassini Regio, which he accurately identified as probably formed by volcanic activity. He also named for him a Martian crater and a lunar crater, and the asteroid 24101, discovered in 1999, also bears his name, and of course the ongoing mission, or the completed mission, of the Cassini-Huygens space probe. I would like to briefly cover the rest of the famous Cassinis, and starting with Giovanni's son Jacques, who was born at the Paris Observatory in 1677. Jacques was admitted to at the age of 17 to membership in the French Academy of Sciences, and was elected in 1696 a Fellow of the Royal Society of London, and became Maître de Camps in 1706. He succeeded his father, as said before, as head of the observatory in 1712. He also is credited with measuring the arc of the meridian from Dunkirk to Perpignan, which we mentioned, in 1713. He published his results in a volume entitled Trait de la grandeur et de la figure de la Terre in 1720. He also wrote in 1740 Elements of the Astronomy. He also published the first tables of the satellites of Saturn in 1716. He married Suzanne Françoise Charpentier in 1711, and they produced 3 sons. Jacques died in April of 1756 at his family estate in Fleuriel, Fleury-sous-Clermont, in West France. Jacques' middle son, César François Cassini de Thury, was born at Thury-sans-Clermont in June of 1714. In 1735, he became a member of the French Academy of Sciences of supernumerary adjunct astronomer. In 1741, he was elevated to the position of adjunct astronomer, and in 1745 as a full member astronomer. 1744, he began construction of the great topographical map of France, one of the landmarks in the history of cartography. He married Charlotte Jean Drouin de Verdille around 1746 and produced one child, Jean-Dominique Cassini. At the death of Cassini's father, Jacques, in 1756, he succeeded as head of the Paris Observatory and pursued his career as both astronomer and cartographer. 1771, the post director of the Paris Observatory was created, which effectively ceased the observatory's dependency on the French Academy of Sciences. His chief works are Le Méridien de l'Observatoire Royal de Paris, 1744, Description géométrique de la Terre, in 1775, and Description géométrique de la France, in 1784. He died of smallpox in Paris in the 4th of September, 1784. Caesar's only offspring, Jean-Dominique Cassini, named for his great-grandfather, was born in Paris in June of 1748. At age 30, he participated in a voyage study of the behaviors of chronometers built by Pierre Leroy, on the frigate Anjou. He published the results in 1770. He worked with his father and published an account of the first 100 years of the Paris Observatory of 1771. After the death of his father in 1784, he succeeded him as director of the Paris Observatory and continued and concluded the great survey initiated by his father in 1789. The French Revolution was making matters more and more difficult for Cassini, who was completely out of sympathy with the revolution. Running the observatory became increasingly difficult as expectations changed. The students of the observatory accused Cassini of publishing their work under his own name without giving them credit. In fact, Cassini had always acknowledged her worth, but truth had no place in France during this period. The National Assembly changed things at the observatory by making 4 posts of professor, one of which went to Cassini, but on half his previous salary, while the students were appointed to the other 3 professorships. One of the students, Jean Perny, was appointed director with the understanding that the post would rotate. Cassini felt humiliated and resigned on the 6th of September, 1793. The Academy of Sciences had already been disbanded in August of 1793, despite Cassini's best efforts to prevent this happening. He could not turn there for help. First, the students told him that he had to leave his rooms at the observatory, which he did a few weeks later. Second, the National Assembly then took Cassini's map as their own property, and when he complained, he was arrested and accused of being a royalist and then imprisoned in 1794 for a period of 7 months. He was lucky to escape the guillotine. A week after Cassini was imprisoned, another former student, Alexander Rule, one of the students who had been elevated to professor of the observatory, was imprisoned for making up observational data. After Cassini was released from prison, he went to live with his family, Chateau in Thury. Leading scientists, Joseph de Lambre and Joseph Lalande, begged him to return to his scientific work, but he refused. When offered a position at the Bureau des Longitudes in 1795, he refused it, as he did with the position offered in the new National Institute in 1796, which was replaced by the Academy of Sciences. Around 1798, he had a change of heart, and when he did accept the position of the National Institute, but was rebuffed in his attempts to join the Bureau des Longitudes. With that, he gave up his attempts to return to science. J.D. Cassini died in Thury, Sans-Clermont, near Beauvais, on October the 18th, 1825. And that's thus the story of the Cassini family. I'm sorry about my Italian and my French. It still needs work, and I think I'll never figure it out, not at my age. But anyway, that's the end of the story. Are there any questions at all?
What's your personal opinion, Ken, on the his overall contribution, whether or not his conservatism held him back?
It certainly did hold him back. From everything that I've read, it certainly did hold him back. He many of the scientists at the time, and you go back to many of them. I mean, you even talk about,
Tycho Brahe.
Tycho Brahe is a perfect example of that. He wasn't going to believe that that everything didn't. He did it. You've seen his Tycho Brahe's a demonstration of what the orbit was.
Yes.
He decided that Mercury and Venus are there, but they have a different type of orbit. In other words, they may be inside or whatever it is, but that's not how it works. It goes around the Earth, and the tectonic illustration just played into the hands of actually probably the church more than anything else. They didn't want anything to be not the center of the Earth as the Earth was. Copernican theory was just on the table, was off the table for so very long, and until finally there was no way they could stop it from happening. But there was no question that many of these astronomers, Kepler included, who were too conservative to allow their actual beliefs to come out. They would say it, but they wouldn't want to say it in public because they didn't want to be shamed. And I think that's pretty much what you get from many of this historical astronomers. It goes all the way through. They started to release their hold on it probably by the mid 1800s. But even so, you notice even in the 1900s, the steady state theory held on for so very long until the Big Bang came. There were some that said the Big Bang was there in the 1930s, I guess, and it was refused. It wasn't accepted by many of astronomers until the 50s. So we get into many of the astronomers, and of course there's so many other influences that go along. You got to give them a little bit of a break because many of them, were astrologers for the royalty, and the royalty needed their palms read. They needed their astrological signs to tell them what things were. And these people that were astronomers and didn't believe in it still did that to have a job. Okay, so being paid for a position really came with an obligation many times for the royalty to get astrology readings. And that happened right on through the late 1800s. So, and I'm sure there's a couple of royalty today that believe it. Maybe not.
I imagine the Catholic Church had a profound effect on science at that time.
Sure.
It had a lot of power, and it could do almost anything.
Well, and they also think,
or it could, throw you out of a job. It could put you in prison. It could censure you for being a heretic. You also were working with kings, like you said, between rock and a hard place. The church and the king, I think, probably was a raised edge place to work in terms of coming up with new and bizarre ideas.
Well, De Revoluti Omnibus, the Copernican output, and Galileo were banned for 150 years after he was tried in 1630 something, whatever it was. Anyway,
exactly.
And it took until 1992 for Galileo to be actually stated by the church that he was right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right. Got more questions for Ken?
I have a comment. I think it's amazing to me that the head of the Paris Observatory was a dynasty for 4 generations. You know, this couldn't have been based on completely on merit. It sounds like it was heavily political.
Generally speaking, 17-year-olds don't get elected to the Royal Academy on merit.
No.
Right.
Well, although many of them were very worthy as far as what they studied and what they produced. As you can see at the end of the presentation, there were a lot of things that each of these produced that were significant going forward. And so, but you know, again, there's a very good possibility they could have continued to reign if it hadn't been for the French Revolution. You know, so you know, who knows? You know, that's I mean, the last of the directors died in 1826. Well, he left there in the late 1700s, 1798 or whatever that was.
I mean, it's worth noting that even when the Paris Observatory switched to a what you might call a meritocratic system, scare quotes included, you know, you get a character like Leverrier, who was such an awful person to work for that the observatory it revolted against him once. He got a replacement. The replacement died untimely. He came back. You know, so it was a very autocratic kind of institution.
No question. No question.
You know, even after the monarchy was abolished and the Cassinis had all died away, you know, it was still arguably held back, you know, by the kind of practices that they had. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, again, like it said, the fourth Cassini came very, very close to losing his head. Very close. As a matter of fact, they arrested him, you know, and many were executed after being arrested for minor crimes. That was what was going on. So, you know, he saw that, and I think that's what scared him most away, that he had had 7 months in jail and then come out while the revolution is going on. My goodness, you know, what are they going to do to me next? You know, so I get it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ken, for the trip through the life and times of the man who gave us the namesake of the wonderful Cassini probe.
And I will post on our thing, the site, so you can see the collapse of the I'll do it on our site, so you can see that.
Yeah, and I'll have a good cry.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Great first meeting of the year. We will see you again on the 3rd Thursday for our virtual Macomb meeting. So everybody be safe and have yourselves a good night.
Thanks, you too. Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Adrian, for those great photos. As always.
You're welcome.
You're the best.
Thank you. Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, go ahead. Go on.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.